Good evening. You guys been watching TV the last few days? Hadn't been watching the Olympics? Are you kidding me? It's America. We're leading in the medal count. I like the Olympics. A couple years from now, I'll even watch the Winter Olympics. Don't know much about it, but I like to watch it. Seems to be all that's on the television, and for me, it's a nice break from lots of political spin going on these days. But I feel like it's a time for our country to root for other Americans, not necessarily tear down everyone. Most of the sports I know nothing about, not that interested in, but I like the competition. You know, I was raised in a pretty competitive family. Most of yours are probably the same way. If you like to play Wahoo, Sally is major league talent at Wahoo, and she will cheat from time to time. Leland will verify. Mace loves to play Uno with her, and she cheats her own granddaughter. Can you believe that? Sally was a pretty good ball player. I was probably an eighth grader or a freshman before I could beat you, and I was decent, but she could beat me all the way up until I was a freshman. And I remember the first day that I could outrun my dad, and it was probably about the same time. He doesn't look like it, but he's pretty fast. And to this day, I've never been able to swim faster. You know, we were poor, so we went on vacation. We found a Motel 6 with a pool. And most of them were about the size of the baptistry. And that Leland, he can fly across that pool. You know, one of the football teams that's most popular in the NFL is the Los Angeles Raiders. And their longtime longtime owner, Al Davis, his famous saying was, "Just win, baby. Just win. It's all that mattered, whatever it takes." And I think these days, people that are competitive have that mindset, win at all costs. If we don't win, we don't want to play. And, you know, it's good to put your effort into things. In fact, we're told that in Colossians chapter 3. We're told that in a lot of different places, but my favorite verse that I've found that talks about that in Colossians chapter 3, verse 23. "And whatever you do, do it heartily as to the Lord and not for men." You know, as a school teacher, I'm not a coach, but a lot of the stuff I do are competitions. Maybe that's why I like the fact that I'm able to teach ag, is that there are a lot of different competitions. It's not so much the winning that I like or that we have to do. It's seeing kids that don't believe that they're capable be able to achieve something that they've worked hard. And when they do that, the smile on their face, the gratitude, the feeling that, hey, today I'm important. That's what I like to see. You know, and we put a lot of effort into it. But the thing is, teachers, and Leland could give you a lesson on this, the thing that causes burnout for a lot of people, especially teachers, is the indifference. Fewer and fewer kids have the eye of the tiger. You know, we celebrated that. We wanted to win. But so many kids, you know, 20 years ago, you could offer them a meal on a field trip and they'd jump in the pickup. Now you got to bribe them to go anywhere because everything's so easily available. There's so many distractions. Whenever we set out to win a competition, it may take months or even years of studying to participate in. Leland taught 28 years, 30 years at Eastern. His deal was land judging. I don't know if any of you guys ever took his class, but he's a pretty decent teacher. But land judging was his competition. Now, personally, I can't think of anything more boring than land judging. I don't care. Grow grass on it. We don't need to learn about soil. But that was his deal. I like the animal side. But 10 or 11 times you were national champion, and another 10 he was runner-up. That's pretty impressive over nationwide, like all the junior colleges, universities. You know, he had a plan. He worked towards it. It took a year or 2 years to get kids prepared to do that. These days, we don't see that kind of effort in a lot of our jobs, a lot of the children. You know, as a teacher that's been at it a few years, nothing is more disappointing when you try to hype kids up or get them to buy into something. They just shrug their shoulders. May do it, may not. If we're going to do it, I want to do it. You know, how many of you have thought about your own Christianity that way? I think sometimes after we've done it a long time, we get lulled into the same routine. We come to church a couple of times a week. Some of us read our Bible every day. Some of us have an active prayer life. Some of us forget. We get busy. We just get into our routine. We have more distractions now than ever. If you think to yourself, what activities have you been involved in lately with the church? Have you tried something new? Have you participated? You know, one of the things that Bob wanted to start a couple of years ago was getting more people involved in our congregation. And hats off to Bob and the leadership and all those behind the scenes that have came up with the trips to go on. The cookout the other night, popping the firecrackers, you know, the different things. I especially like Caleb's ice cream, by the way. All the different things that we've been able to do as a congregation. If we look around at our contemporaries, there's a lot of churches that are drying up. They're not doing a lot of those things. They go through the motions, but there's not much extra. You know, what are we doing every day that can make a difference for this church family to make this congregation the very best we can be? And I think one of those things right now that's needed more than ever is prayer. You know, in our prayer lives, man, I'd sure appreciate it if you prayed for our country right now. What a mess. You know, all this political upheaval, all the problems, the economy right now. You know, some of you are old enough to have lived through the early 70s, late 60s. Some of you survived the 80s. You know, we're in a pretty vulnerable spot right now, and I feel like our country is teetering. We need to be praying for our country's leaders, that they look to the Word, that they look to God. You know, I'm not going to name names, but there was a convention not long ago, and they talked about the Lord more times at that convention than all the rest of them I've ever seen. It's on their minds. One of our presidential candidates was almost assassinated 2 weeks ago. Immediately, when they started doing the interviews, they gave credit to God for saving his life. He thought it was a divine intervention, that he just happened to turn his head at the right time. That's the first time since Ronald Reagan back in the 80s that there's been a serious attempt like that in our country, in a part of Pennsylvania that's not inner city. You know, it can happen. All this anti-Israel stuff, the protests, the nonsense going on. Our country is in a vulnerable spot. And last but not least, you know, here in Oklahoma, we're blessed because we're in more of a rural setting, more of a conservative area. Things aren't as wacky. We don't have to worry about an anti-Israel rally over by Sonic here in Stigler like they do in other parts of the country. But one thing that is going to be big, and it's going to get big press, is this having to teach the Bible in schools. Have you thought about that? Man, what a can of worms that is. Now, if we got a good teacher that knows the Word, that doesn't add or take away, doesn't try to twist it, man, what a neat opportunity to expose a whole generation of children to what's in the Bible. But what scares me, most things in education are backwards. Who's teaching it? What are they teaching? Are we going to have somebody with a Muslim background teaching the Bible? Are we going to have somebody with a Catholic background teaching the Bible? Who knows? We got a mandate, but we don't have much information on that mandate. Once again, all these things swirling around us, we need prayers for our country, our schools, our teachers, our leadership more than ever. And that's something that we can do in addition to participating in our local activities, coming to worship. And I know the Wednesday night crowd, it's preaching to the choir, I get it. But of all times, in my brief lifetime, this is one of those times that so many things are hitting us at one time. And if things continue down this path, it's a pretty sad sight. So with that, I don't want to be doom and gloom. Enjoy the Olympics, by the way. Go Team USA. We're ahead in the medal count. But if anyone has any needs of the church or anybody needs any prayers, please come forward as we stand and sing.